Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allows you to record and edit your broadcast so it sounds great. And they even distribute your broadcast for you so that it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So make sure you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hello everyone, and here are your news for this week. Join host Andrew FRETT every Friday on our podcast for his show, Let's Fret About Education, where he interviews amazing guests and discusses his own opinions and thoughts about the topics on Future Educators Talk and what's happening around the world. Follow and subscribe to my own podcast, Damian Talks Education, everywhere you stream your podcast at, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. New episodes of Future Educators Talk drops on Thursdays, so follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast at. Follow Future Educators Talk on social media: Facebook, Future Educators Talk, Instagram at Future Educators Talk, and on Twitter at Future Ed Talk. So follow our podcast. And follow your host of Future Educators Talk on social media. You can follow me, Damian Anderson, on Instagram at @DamianAnderson and on Twitter at _Damian Anderson. You can follow Andrew FRETT on Instagram at @It'sAndrewFRETT and on Twitter at Darren_Fret. And you can follow KJ Johnson II on Instagram at KJJohnsonII and on Twitter at KJJohnson11 or II. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Future Educators Talk, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of our video version episodes that we upload. Also, you can now listen to past episodes of our show on our YouTube channel and on all the podcast platforms that we are located at. Now sit back and relax because a new episode of Future Educators Talk is starting now.
Welcome to Future Educators Talk with your hosts, Damian Anderson, Andrew FRETT, and KJ Johnson II. Always remember, we are future educators.
So let's get started with this episode here. And we're still talking about race on this podcast here. So the topic for today is how to start talking about race in the early elementary classrooms. Now that is interesting. So let's get on board with this here. So young kids today, they are very curious, very, very curious about, what's going on in the world. And of course, right now, because with this coronavirus, they're so very curious about, what's going on. And teachers, they can help correct some false information of this to them, and also to provide some context as well with this. Now, as we know, as the nation, it reckons with its long history of racial injustice now. Kids, they are being quite inundated with headlines in the news and, starting to have conversations on the topics of race and racism. And they got questions. We all got questions, not just them. We all have questions. So, KJ, why does everybody have questions of this, of wanting to talk about race and racism now?
Well, in regards to the questions about talking to racism now, is because it's literally been in the media for a while, since probably about May 25th, when George Floyd was murdered on the street of Minneapolis. So, racism was a problem. Social justice was a problem before then. However, this was kind of like the gas on the fire, the lighter fluid on the barbecue pit type thing. So, it was flared up. You know, although many kids who have social media accounts, many kids who watch the news and watch TV and see these different things are exposed to this graphic content, and now they're asking questions. And so really, I think even though it should have been talked about in the first place for a long time, I think this is the perfect time to do it because everything is going on. Literally, this is another civil rights movement that we're living in. And if the kids aren't educated about it, what if something like this happens again? Because I'm pretty sure it will happens again like this. How would they know how to act? Act. And so experts agree children shouldn't be exposed to this graphic content or discuss race and racism openly and early in the elementary classroom. Beginning in preschool, research shows that children begin sorting out people by race. They see the different colors in their skin, and they see the different features in their face, and the different type of athletic, physical ability. Children can be conscious of social stereotypes by certain behaviors as well, and they can naturally attribute positive traits to their own ethnic or racial groups. So, if I notice that Black people are doing certain things, I'm gonna associate this trait with Black people. That makes sense. So the goal about talking racism is to talk in a warm and inclusive way about these differences that exist in these different people. Avoiding these conversations for fear or for the wrong thing or under the guise, the I guess you say the concept and the notion of color blindness is also a missed opportunity to educate somebody about these differences. If you can't talk about race, you can't understand it, much less fix this racial problem that plagues our society now. And there are several steps teachers, educators, caregivers, parents should take to foster these conversations with their children. Damian, I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first I have here is we are going to correlate some diverse books and context with this. So educators, teachers, please listen up to this. You can start, with your classroom with bookshelves, and you can aim to develop a variety of collections of diverse books that teaches some age appropriate lessons on racial injustice and history, and that do not gloss over some painful truths of this. But you have some diverse books collections. It should do more than, portray the oppression of people of color. Now, these collections, it should be very rich and varied and include books about diverse individuals having typical childhood experiences. Now, let's go into the English, into the math, the science, social studies, the art, and music. You will examine the contribution of diverse culture. You will write this out about how the contribution of Black people in these areas, and this was from a former teacher named Rand Miller, who calls this, and I like this here, infusing Black history into the curriculum year round, because Black History Month, it is not a gimmick meant for only 1 month out of the year with a student assembly or a potluck dinner with some transitional Black foods, because and I mentioned this on my other podcast, Damian Talks Education, that Black history is American history. Black history is American history. We got to know that. We got to remember that there. And students, they should learn this throughout the year, not just only during the month of February. And then once February ends, we just stop talking about it. And then here comes next year around. We talk about it in February again, then we stop. We got to do this year round to our students, especially to our Black students. And this will be a discipline about all the accomplishments, all the experience, and the perspective of Black people. So that's what I have here we need to teach Black history year round to our Black students, not just only during the month of February. So that's what I have there. What are your thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
I like what you said about Black history being American history, because that is so true and it holds so much weight. Let's talk about the civil rights movement. Let's talk about slavery. Let's talk about the Civil War. Let's talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. Let's talk about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And I go on and on. That is my branch of history that I will forever study for as long as I live. And then it even goes back to the days where the African slave trade, when we were brought over on ships unwillingly. Like, that is American history. Cotton, is American history. Look, we wouldn't have the blessed freedoms that we have today if it wasn't for Black people. We wouldn't have the clothes that we wear today if it wasn't for Black people. We wouldn't have the songs and the entertainment. People, like, our culture has such a significant impact on today's society that if Black culture was not brought over to the United States of America, then the United States of America wouldn't be the United States of America. So I love how you said Black history is American history, because there's so much in literally. I think it was my junior year in high school where I took U.S. History 2. And my senior year, that's when I took it in college. It was U.S. History 1302. That's where it talked about, everything after the Civil War, from Reconstruction to the Harlem Renaissance to the Roaring Twenties, Harlem Renaissance, same period, the Great Depression, and then the Civil Rights Movement all the way up until I don't know what president it was. I believe it was either Lyndon B. Johnson or Nixon or Reagan. But anyways, that whole chunk of history is Black history, but it is taught American. It is American history. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you said that, and I want people to understand that, because without Black history, there would be no American history, and America would not be where it is right now. But this is what I have to say. In incorporating and race in the elementary classrooms, teachers, if you're an elementary teacher, ensure that you are building anti-bias lessons. Don't just talk about, don't talk about, the American dream of having male having a job, woman having a job, having 2 kids. No, talk about, single parent households. Talk about, the unemployment. That's just kind of deep for elementary, but like incorporate all those different elements in it. Build anti-bias lessons so that kids can be exposed to all of it, so they'll know the proper steps they need to take to either, live for something or live to prevent something, if that makes sense. So addressing bias takes openness and courage. It's just not one conversation, like we said in the last episode. It is a continuing conversation. Kids' social and emotional development is an essential piece of the elementary curriculum. It is so important to teach lessons about bias, diversity, and social justice. Social and emotional skills development lessons are the foundation, and teachers can move these lessons to identify the differences and the bias on how bullying can be addressed individually and institutionally. And one thing I like to put in there is the issue of equity versus equality. When I was preparing this for this episode to speak, I was looking at the difference between equity and equality. And if kids understand the difference between equity and equality, it would, oh my gosh, it would save us a lot of time and a lot of trouble in the future. I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say it once, hopefully you get it. Equality means treating everybody the same, treating every student the same, and treating, depending on, how, well, really, despite how they look, how they talk, how they feel, treating every student the same, regardless if it's race, maybe it's disabilities, maybe it's something else, treating every student the same, while equity is ensuring every student has the equal amount of support needed to be successful. So, you may be treating the student the same, but instead you are still creating an opportunity gap because some students have more resources to be successful than others. Make sure when you bring the race issue into the classroom, you incorporate equity and equality. The next thing you can do to incorporate race in the elementary classroom is to model the action. What adults do is far more what they say. Look, I like to say this because when I'm teaching leaders, when I'm pouring into my executive board, when I'm doing all of this, I like to say this: model what you expect. If you expect the kids to act in a way where they are treating everybody the same, you're expecting kids to act in a way where they're incorporating and encouraging and promoting diversity, you have to model that yourself. Is much more to say it. It's a lot more to actually model it. Your modeling can have a big impact on kids. It has been said and argued that adults who actively engage in cycles of learning, listening, and talking about anti-racism may be more effective at teaching children to be anti-racist. For teachers, this may mean joining school and district policy reform efforts to reduce racial disparities in educational opportunities and school disciplines. Listen, it is beyond curating rich and diverse book collections and hosting book talks that feature a broad range of voices and experiences, school librarians can advocate for local equity initiative and support scholarship fundraisers for different diverse organizations. Go ahead, Damian.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with all that you just mentioned there. Absolutely. And the last thing I have is when you are taking on sensitive topics of, trying to talk about race and racism into your classroom teachers, it is very important. It's an important work that requires some self-reflection and humility on this. It really is. And Janet or Damon, who is a library specialist at Denver Public Schools, she says this here: we all bring fear. We all have childhood trauma. We have treachery on these things of these conversations here. But to better understand the damaging influence of systematic racism and the privileges and the unconscious bias in education, educators, you guys must reflect on your own, and probably sometimes, this, it can be painful, your race-related experiences. You have to reflect on your own experience with this. Now, the resulting awareness to this can make them more powerful role models for your children. So I like this here. So, reflect on your own experience, because and like I mentioned in the last episode, we are not the same. We are all different. We all come from different backgrounds. So we all need to, bring that in together and start having the conversations the right way with each other. That's all I have to say there, because and then I had this conversation with Andrew. If you want to talk about race with me and what's currently happening around the world, Black Lives Matter movement, the protests, racial injustice, whatever, if you want to have, to my right friends, if you want to start having a conversation with me, I am totally fine with it. I really am. But if you do not do your homework and you do not know the facts, the information, the history behind it, do not come talk to me about these issues with me, because I am going to have it the right and the correct way with you. I am not going to have it the wrong way to where you are pouring out such crap and information of not talking about it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So you need to know your facts and your information.
I feel that. Like the other day. Like, the other day, I think it was the night of the debate. I was kind of hit from the debate, and I was kind of upset. And so I made a post saying, like, if you support the way our country is ran now, please direct me and let me know why you support it. And everybody who direct messaged me, I think I got about 4 direct messages. They were saying, you know, they were saying different things, but they weren't tackling the central issue, and that was the issue of social injustice, the issue of race, and the issue of systemic racism. And then I would even go as far as say the coronavirus pandemic and how Black people are being disproportionately affected by it. You know, it was proven that when Black people were found to be disproportionately affected by the coronavirus pandemic, it's just so happened. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but you know, that was just my observation. But as I was having these conversations, they weren't tackling these issues about racism and injustice. So I'm like, so the question arose to me, well, are people seeing it and ignoring it, or people just don't see a problem with it at all? And so it is up to us. And if you are, you know, part of our white counterparts and you see it, you want to take action, let your people know. Let other white people know that it is still a thing on you where America is not great. And so let them know that these are the needs to be taken to these issues. And because it's enough for us to have these conversations with and there's always a thing where, you know, when a Black person wants to have a conversation about race, they're angry about racism and the civil rights. They're angry. No, we're not angry. We're just trying to make change. We're not angry. And that's why we need our Caucasian counterparts to help us out with this, to let your people know, and I'm not saying that, you know, biased, or I'm not saying that with offense, to let your people know that this is such an ongoing issue that needs to be discussed. And if it doesn't get fixed with people with power, it's definitely not going to be fixed with people without power. So you have power. Help us out. Help a brother out, please. Help us out so we can live in a country to where we can live by our Constitution, where it says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. We can live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Because right now I don't feel so free, and I'm not too brave to talk about it like this. So educate your people, please. Let them know that it is still an issue, and let them know that it needs to be fixed.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got to start talking about it, you guys. I'm sorry, we have to start talking about it. If you want change to happen, I'm going to keep saying this. You want change to happen, start talking about it. If you don't start talking about it, no change is going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. It just is what it is. So this was a great episode here. Thank you guys for listening to this powerful episode. We from moving forward, we will start having these conversations with y'all about race and racism, because it is time now. It is time now for you all to start talking about it and not be silenced. We can't be silenced anymore. We cannot be silenced anymore. So again, thank you for listening to this episode here. Make sure you follow this podcast everywhere. We are on social media, and we are everywhere on podcast platforms, and our video version episodes are uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So until then, you guys, take care of yourself, be blessed, and we will see you guys next time on a new episode of Future Educators Talk. So take care of yourself, and please wear your mask. Wear your mask.
What's going on, everybody? It's KJ here, letting you know that if you have any questions or concerns about Future Educators Talk, stories to share, feedback to make our podcast better, reactions to the topics that we discuss, jokes to tell, or you would like someone for the co-host to interview, please let us know by direct messaging us on Instagram at Future Educators Talk, emailing us at futureeducatorstalk@gmail.com, or sending in a voice message to us by going to anchor.fm/futureedtalk. Click on the message tab to where you can record your question to us. Once again, we thank you for listening. Thank you for your continued support, and we cannot wait for you to tune in for season 4.
Don't just listen to Future Educators Talk on your smartphone. Continue the conversation online. Like us on Facebook. Be a part of our conversation by telling us what you think of our episodes. Join us on Instagram for behind the scenes content. Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date with what's happening on our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. And beyond, it's you who keeps Future Educators Talk going. So like, comment, share, subscribe, review, and connect everywhere with us. You get social. So let's listen together.